Keandre Miller is now a Carolina Hurricane, but we are sending him off by remembering his top 5 greatest moments as a member of the New York Rangers. Plus, did he actually end the Pittsburgh Penguins?
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1354 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Schick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, yeah, Keandre Miller's on his way. Obviously, the Rangers move him to the Carolina Hurricanes in exchange for a first-round pick, a second-round pick, and prospect defenseman Scott Morrow. And I'm kind of right where I was going into this offseason and right where I was when the trade winds basically started blowing. We started finding out that Keandre Miller, in all likelihood, was going to be traded away by the New York Rangers. They were kind of at a crossroads with Miller, and rather than give him the kind of massive contract that the Canes ended up giving to him, I figured the better thing to do would be to trade Miller and acquire some assets in return, and obviously the Rangers did that, and I like the return and everything. But with all that said, there were certainly some good times while Keandre Miller was a member of the New York Rangers, and we're going to count down what I consider to be the 5 best moments of Keandre Miller's career with the Rangers. And of course, there's another former Ranger you might remember. That would, of course, be Chris Kreider. And we are going to discuss Kreider a little bit later in the offseason. We're going to do something very similar. In that episode, though, what we're going to do is actually going to be a two-parter. We're going to count down Kreider's 10 best moments as a member of the Rangers. That's quite the project, still putting the list together. But for right now, no further ado, let's go ahead and discuss Keandre Miller's top 5 moments as a member of the New York Rangers, or at least my top 5 personal favorite moments with Miller as a member of the Rangers. So we start with number 5 here. We'll work our way up to number 1. Number 5 is going to be Keandre Miller's game-winning overtime goal at the start of the 2023-2024 season on the road against the Canucks. And to just kind of put everybody back into that time period, that was, of course, Peter Laviolette's first year as the Rangers head coach. The Rangers ended up in the Eastern Conference Final, and they did lose to the Panthers, but they won the President's Trophy. They had a great season right up until they ran into the brick wall that we've come to know as the Florida Panthers. But with all that said, this is a great way to start the season, and it's never too early to set the tone for the year ahead of you, to win a couple dramatic games early and just kind of establish some good vibes in the locker room and get everybody going in the same direction. And this win here certainly helped with that. So the Rangers, again, very early in the season, first 10 games or so, I believe these were the 5th through 9th games or something along those lines, but it was a 5-game road trip on the West Coast, and the Rangers just did awesome. They went 5-0. They had some exciting wins in there, including this one. This is the 4th of the 5 wins on that 5-game road trip. It's getting late in overtime. The Rangers are playing up against the Canucks, and it's been a back-and-forth game all the way. There's barely a minute remaining in the overtime period. Chris Kreider may have gotten away with a trip here. I know some Canucks fans were not happy about this at all. The fans started booing immediately, but be that as it may, 3-on-3 overtime, Kreider is able to take the puck away from his opponent. He starts up the ice going up the left side. He draws a defender with him, and he kind of spins and circles back for a second, does Kreider. Then he continues moving toward the net. He makes a really quick pass to his right to Keandre Miller. Miller winds back, lets it fly, just an absolute blast, one-timer, and Miller is your overtime hero. And that gave the Rangers their 4th win in as many games to begin this 5-game road trip. And then Kreider, who I just mentioned a second ago, he actually ended up scoring the overtime winner in the 5th one. So they go 5-0 on the road trip, all kinds of dramatics and theatrics and whatnot. And like I said, never too early to set a tone for your season. And I think the Rangers did that here. And obviously Keandre Miller with the overtime winner played no small part in doing exactly that. We move on to number 4. This is going to be the 5-on-5 brawl between the Rangers and the Devils to start one of their late season games in the same season that we just mentioned, 2023-2024. I mean, that was a really good season, so it should be no surprise that we're kicking off this countdown with 2 entries from that season. But yeah, this is a little bit later in the season. This is in April of 2024. The Devils, they were mad at the Rangers. They were none too happy because in their last meeting, the one before this. I think it was the game before this. Matt Rempe had a very questionable moment, hit somebody up high, ended up getting, I think it was like an 8-game suspension, which I was for Rempe getting suspended. I think that was reasonable. 8 games seemed a little bit excessive for what we saw there. But, the Devils, they were looking for some payback. They were looking for some blood, and they tried. I don't think it really went very well for them. But basically, this game starts with the Devils having, their fourth line on the ice, and specifically McDermott. He was going to go after Matt Rempe. Matt Rempe was out there too. The puck drops, and away we go. It's a 5-on-5 brawl. And, Rempe and McDermott, a lot of the focus was there. The camera stayed with those two for a while. Both of them landed a couple of punches. The first cutaway we got, though, watching that game, was to the fight involving Miller and Marino. And Miller basically just wrecked him. Landed a good amount of punches, threw him down to the ice, and cut him a little bit of a break. Because those 5-on-5 brawls, man, there's basically no rules. You've got 4 officials on the ice to try to break up 5 fights. And really, it takes 2 officials, I would say, to properly break up a fight. Because if you've got one referee trying to break up a fight and he grabs one guy, he just became the other guy's tag team partner, right? Like, how do you really break it up when there's only one of you? You can try and you can do your best, but, that's just mayhem right there. And this was mayhem to start a game. 2 seconds into the game, 5 fights. Miller was in the middle of it. And Miller, more definitively than anybody else on the ice, won his fight. And this despite the fact that to date, this is still K'Andre Miller's only 5-minute major penalty. But he is definitively 1-0 after this night. He had a little bit of a size advantage or whatever, but whatever. It's a 5-on-5 fight. You kind of just get pulled into it, and you make the most of it. And Miller certainly made the most of this situation. This was just wild, though. There were 130 penalty minutes given out. I don't think the Devils won any of these fights. I think they might have legitimately gone 0-5 during this. Miller certainly won his fight, like I said. Then you get that great camera shot of the Rangers penalty box, and all 5 of them are trying to pack in there. There's not even a spot for them all to sit down. Some of them were laughing. Miller was laughing. Jimmy Vesey was in there. He was laughing too. But you end up with the Rangers getting 5 5-minute majors, as did the Devils. And you also get a situation here where the officials very conveniently ruled that the Vesey versus Lazar fight had started first. And that being the case, that meant that every other fight was like a secondary fight. And if you do that, if you get into a fight after the first one breaks out, then, it's an automatic game misconduct. So the Rangers had 4 players ejected from the game. So too did the Devils. K'Andre Miller got tossed. Jacob Trouba, Barclay Goodrow, Matt Rempe all ejected from this game. But Miller played a grand total of 2 seconds that night, and I think he at least made the most of it by definitively winning his fight, despite it being the first fight of his career. And he actually, Miller, posted a picture of this on Instagram not too long after this, because that was quite the battle there. That was quite the start of a hockey game, and Miller obviously got the best of his guy, and the Rangers went on to win that game, and I think that did at least something to set a little bit of a tone there. We're going to move on to number 3 in the countdown here. This is going to be a game against the Devils. The Devils again. This was the year before, though. This is 2022-2023. The Rangers scored 2 goals in the span of just 7 seconds. And the Rangers were down 3-1 late in the second period. Trocheck scores on the power play. Then you get a situation where the ensuing faceoff is won by the Rangers. It's won clean back to K'Andre Miller on the left side. Miller, moves up the ice quickly. He chips the puck into the offensive zone. It goes to Philip Hedl. Hedl gets it along the boards and then makes a really fancy backhand quick pass back to K'Andre Miller. Miller's moving toward the net. The defender thinks he's going to shoot. Miller kind of sells the shot a little bit and then goes across the ice to Kaapo Kakko. Kakko bangs it home, ties the game at 3-3, and Rangers ended up winning that game in overtime. But 2 goals in 7 seconds. Miller obviously had a big hand in that. And a very memeable moment. You still see that picture floating around on social media every once in a while, because after the second goal was scored there, Kakko and Miller were celebrating the goal, and they both somehow ended up basically falling down to the ice. And Lafreniere's coming over there too, and he trips over them and basically lands on his head, like his skates are up into the air and everything. And like I said, you do still see that picture every once in a while floating around on social media, but a great play by Miller there, obviously setting up the goal for Kaapo Kakko. It's a little bit bittersweet now, though, because you look at that picture and, Hedl's in it, Kakko's in it, Miller's in it. All 3 of them are gone. Braden Schneider and Alexis Lafreniere, they were on the ice then too, and they're in that picture that you see every so often. And they're obviously still on the Rangers, but yeah, things have certainly changed since then. I think that's fair to say. And fun fact about this game as well, Miller also ended up with the secondary assist on the overtime winner. It was Miller to Panarin to Philip Hedl. Hedl shot off the bar or it caught iron. It definitely caught iron. I don't know if it was the crossbar or the post, but he shot off one of the posts, put it in the net, and gave the Rangers a win. So those are 5 through 3. In just a second, we're going to keep everything rolling. Going to get to the top 2 moments of K'Andre Miller's career. And then at the end of today's episode, we're going to continue doing what we've been doing through the offseason here after the draft. We're going to have a draft spotlight where we focus in on one player that the Rangers took in this year's draft. And today it's going to be 6th-round right winger Samuel Jung. We're going to get to all that good stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. It's easy to use, it is fast to pay out, and it makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet ride into the 9th inning, FanDuel will make you feel like you are part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first best bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, let's go ahead and continue this top 5 countdown. K'Andre Miller's best moments as a member of the New York Rangers. As I said in the intro, I completely stand by everything I say. I think it was time for this to happen. Sometimes you can just get a sense that it's time for a player and an organization to go separate ways. I think we got there with K'Andre Miller, and even if you're not so sure about it, I think most people will be pretty happy about the haul that the Rangers got in exchange for Miller. But with all that said, let's go ahead and get to number 2 and then number 1 on this list. Number 2 is going to be a goal that K'Andre Miller scored, a literal last-second goal. That's a phrase that gets thrown around every so often, and it's fine. Like, I mean, if somebody scores with less than 10 seconds left, I think it's okay to call it a last-second goal. That's fine. But this is a literal last-second goal. There was less than a second remaining when K'Andre Miller scored a game-tying goal against the Dallas Stars in January of 2023. To begin with, this is an awesome game. It was low-scoring, but it was a battle all the way through. You know, everybody had to work for everything that they got in that game. The Rangers are down 1-0. We get to the final minute. The goalie is pulled. Miller actually made a really nice play somewhat early in this shift because Panarin sent the puck back to the blue line, and Miller had to get over there pretty quickly, over there to the point. He's got a star in his face, converging very quickly. You're trying to put some pressure on him and presumably get the puck out of the zone. Miller stood tall there, though, and he quickly moved the puck back in deep to Vincent Trocheck. But at this point, I mean, you're down to like 14 or 13 seconds, whatever it is. You got to figure out a way to get the puck at the net. The puck stays on the boards for a while, and then Panarin from along the boards doesn't really have a great shot, but he knows he's got to get it out there and at least give one of his guys a chance. So he puts it toward the net. We get a scramble in front. The Rangers are trying to find it. They can't quite do it. The puck eventually comes out of, you know, the crease area, and Miller is moving in to go get it. And he knows, I mean, time is running out. I got to shoot. That's all there is to it. So he winds back, blasts a slap shot. The puck gets blocked. It goes right back to Miller, and this time he takes a wrist shot, and he scores. There's literally less than a second remaining when this happened, and that tied the game. It went into overtime, and an equally chaotic overtime winner as well. Adam Fox ended up scoring on a backhand shot. He basically roofed it in deep. You know, Mika was out there and Panarin too, and like I said, just a chaotic scramble in the overtime, and Fox is your overtime hero. But that doesn't even come to fruition if not for K'Andre Miller, you know, taking those 2 shots at the end of regulation and figuring out a way to get that puck home in crunch time there. So obviously a big-time clutch moment by K'Andre Miller in that situation. Honestly, I mean, you look at the last handful of seasons, we won't include the playoffs because they're on a whole level of their own. But, I mean, you show me a better regular season win than that for the New York Rangers in the last 5 years, maybe the last 10 years. I mean, we could have a countdown like that at some point too, but that's really up there. And I do remember we did a crossover with Locked On Stars before that game, and I just threw out a prediction. I said, you know what? The Rangers will win 2-1. Adam Fox will get the overtime winner. And when you do 1,300 and whatever episodes, eventually you get a couple of things right, if by no other reason than simply by luck. But tip of the hat to K'Andre Miller because he made me look good that night. But big-time clutch moment for K'Andre Miller, scoring a game-tying goal with literally less than a second remaining. And the number 1 play, to me, this is a no contest. It's a no-brainer. It is the play that he made when the lights were brightest. The first playoff series in the NHL that Keandre Miller ever competed in his life, and that was against the Penguins in Game 7 in overtime. You think about Rangers Penguins, in that series and what exactly happened and what comes to mind. I mean, right away, you're going to think about the Panarin overtime winner, and understandably so. That's kind of the moment that just kind of gets burned into everybody's memories. And you can remember who you were and what you were with and how you reacted when that, shot went into the net. And obviously an amazing moment. But there's a couple of plays in that game that I think get somewhat forgotten. They get overshadowed by the Panarin overtime winner. First of all, let me give kind of like an honorable mention here to the Mika Zibanejad game tying goal that occurred with about 5 minutes remaining in regulation. Keandre Miller was on the ice for that goal as well. But man, the play that Keandre Miller made in overtime, this is absolutely phenomenal. And this is when I started thinking that, like, man, Keandre Miller is going to be a superstar. He is going to be what I've referred to as a pillar of Ranger hockey going forward. I mean, I was already feeling pretty good about Miller, but without what he did in overtime here, who's to say what ends up happening? The Rangers might not even win this game. So with no further ado, this is what happened. Let's go ahead and break down the Game 7 overtime play made by Keandre Miller. So the Penguins get the Rangers zone. You've got McGinn going up the right side. Keandre Miller, he's right there. He gets in his face and basically pins him against the boards there. McGinn gets away. He circles back. He's kind of moving around along the blue line there, trying to sort of tightrope the blue line. Miller follows him. He's all over him, and he pokes the puck away from him and out into the neutral zone. And now the race is on for the loose puck. And Miller just absolutely explodes past McGinn on this play. He picks up the puck along the boards, kind of where the benches are. He's got to move back to his right because he's going left to right on the screen. He's trying to get to the net. He is getting to the net, and it forces McGinn to hook him and take a penalty. And a lot of us were wondering, watching that play live, is this going to be a penalty shot? And I think it probably was the right call that it was not a penalty shot because Miller wasn't quite in the clear. They tend not to call penalty shots unless you're truly past everybody. And McGinn did have a little bit of an angle there, but it clearly was a penalty, and they called it, and that put the Rangers on the man advantage. And you guys know the rest. I mean, with about 10 or 15 seconds left in the power play, Panarin scores the game winner. And again, that's the moment that everybody is going to remember, and completely understandably so. But the Rangers are not even on the power play in that situation, if not for the phenomenal play that Keandre Miller played, just a minute or two before that. So can't say enough about that play there. Also, I kind of wanted to make this its own entry on the list, but I guess we'll make it an honorable mention here at the very end. Also very easy to forget in that game, the Game 7 overtime winner against the Penguins. Keandre Miller scored a goal in that game, and it was a big one. The Rangers were down 2-1, and Penguins seemed to have the momentum in the game, and it was a little bit of a fluky goal. Andrew Kopp had the puck along the boards. He passed it back to Keandre Miller on the left side. Miller moves toward the net. It certainly looked like he was trying to pass, and it was one of those follow the bouncing puck kind of plays. Even watching the replay earlier today, it's kind of hard to tell exactly what happened, but I think it was off a Penguin, off the goalie, off another Penguin, and in. So you get a little bit of luck there, but obviously, Miller had been playing well around that time. And you know what? Sometimes you earn those breaks. And I think that's a case of that as well. And again, like I said earlier, this is Keandre Miller's first ever playoff series. And he makes one of the big plays in overtime that allowed the Rangers to win this game, win this series, come back from 3-1 down, and do it in the most dramatic fashion imaginable. And on top of all that, did he end the Penguins? I mean, he kind of did. Again, everybody's going to look at Panarin first and the overtime winner, and that's obviously the play that stands out. But Keandre Miller set that whole thing up. And so by doing that, the Rangers knock out the Penguins there. It's a devastating loss for the Penguins. They were up 3-1 in that series, in total control, had a 2-goal lead in Game 5 and Game 6, had the lead in Game 7, couldn't lock down any of them, and the Rangers come back and win it. Penguins have not been back to the playoffs since then, and they haven't really even been all that close. I mean, I think a year or two that they were sort of in the race down the stretch there, but they didn't play well down the stretch and basically took themselves out of it. I mean, that might have been the last time that we see Crosby, Letang, Malkin in the playoffs for the Penguins. And I'm not going to shed any tears about that. I'm completely fine with that. And Keandre Miller had, at least something of a hand there in dealing that big knockout blow to this team. Not just for that season, but for seasons to come, because they haven't, like I said, been back to the postseason since that happened. But I figure we'll conclude the Keandre Miller section of today's episode by reading his Instagram post, because it's one thing for me to sit here and talk about him, but you guys deserve to hear what Keandre Miller said, to the New York Ranger fan base, which I can only assume is the vast majority of people listening to this podcast right now or watching this podcast on YouTube. But this is what Keandre Miller posted on Instagram. He posted a total of, I think, 9 pictures of himself with the Rangers, just various moments being out there on the ice, celebrating goals, the whole 9 yards. But this is what Miller had to say. I'll just read the whole thing here for you guys. To the Rangers fans, I'll miss the roar of the crowd and the Let's Go Rangers chants that will forever echo in my mind. Your fandom is second to none. To the workers at MSG, thank you for always being there, especially coming in and out of the building. Your presence and support never went unnoticed. To the first responders around the Garden, thank you for keeping the Rangers family and our fans safe every single day. Stay strong. To my teammates, thank you for your support and lessons along the way. You made me a better player and person. Grateful. To the Rangers coaches, trainers, and support staff, thank you for teaching me, caring for me, and helping me. Most appreciated. To Chris Drury and Mr. Dolan, thank you for giving me my start and allowing me to live out my dream in the greatest arena in the world. Thank you. Peace out, New York City. Stay safe until we meet again. Well, they're going to meet again. I mean, look, it's a division rivalry. Obviously, we know that. And I believe, I want to say the first Rangers-Canes game, I had it circled on my calendar, and now I don't remember the date, but I'm almost positive that it's in early November this upcoming season. It's kind of in a weird spot in the schedule where there's 2 days off before it, 2 days off after it, but that's going to be a big one. Rangers and Canes, going to battle it out in Madison Square Garden. Really a heartfelt post here by Keandre Miller. Again, to make it clear one more time here, I do stand by my thought process that this was the thing to do, that they were in the right to trade Keandre Miller. I think it was the right move, but very heartfelt. Nice to see him, thanking people that just work at MSG and first responders and whatnot. Even players that, put out heartfelt messages like this. They don't always do things like that. So that's obviously very nice to see from Keandre Miller. And I wish him as well as I can wish somebody that is going to a division rival team. It'd be a lot easier if he was on a Western Conference team, but obviously, he got his contract and good for him. And, we'll see what the next whole bunch of years hold between Miller and the Canes and the Rangers. We'll see how everything goes. We'll see how it all shakes out here. But in just a second, we got one more thing to do today. I want to continue our offseason series of Prospect Spotlight, where we take a look at one of the Rangers, one of the members of this year's draft class. And today, it's going to be sixth-round right winger Samuel Jung, what he brings to the table. We will discuss him in just a second. All right, with no further ado, let's go ahead and wrap up today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers by talking a little bit about sixth-round right winger Samuel Jung, taken by the Rangers in the 2025 NHL draft class. He is now 19 years old. This is actually his second year of draft eligibility. He went undrafted last year, got drafted this year, and the Rangers took him, like I said, in the sixth round at number 166 overall. He is listed at 6'3" at 172 pounds. So sizing that up, kind of sounds like a little bit of a lankier player, at least for now, until he fills out a little bit, adds some muscle and whatnot, and also a lefty shot. It's interesting because he was actually the final of only 3 forwards that the Rangers took in this year's draft. The 3 forwards that the Rangers took were as follows. You had Malcolm Spence. He's a left winger. Then you had Mikkel Eriksson, who is a center. And now you kind of have everything come full circle here by taking Jung, who is a right winger. And if I happen to be mispronouncing his name, I do apologize for that. But I have to say right now, I scoured the internet far and wide, every social media site, every kind of Google search or whatnot, looked on YouTube. There are no instances of him having his name said in a video, at least not that I could find. And I searched very diligently. So again, if I'm mispronouncing it, I do apologize. But again, I just thought that was interesting in and of itself, that he was one of only 3 forwards that the Rangers took in this year's draft. Other than that, they took 5 defensemen, which I'm kind of happy about because I do think the Rangers need to kind of restock the cupboard there. But as far as Jung goes, and I've kind of been hinting at this already, it's about as little information as I've ever been able to find about any player that the Rangers have drafted. And we know, year in and year out, once you get into the 5th round, certainly the 6th and 7th rounds, the information that you're able to find is very few and far between. But there's nothing. I mean, I went on YouTube and there's one video that involves Jung, and it's a 15-second video of the analyst. I don't even know what analyst it is because he's off screen, but this is what he had to say about Jung. He said, I don't expect a lot of offense from him. It's a little bit of a dart, to be perfectly honest with you, and that's okay because he's got to compete and he moves well enough. So we'll see how the rest of it falls into place. So you can draw any conclusions that you can draw from that statement. I mean, look, it's not much, but it's at least something. The other funny thing about this, I got to mention this too, because I was searching far and wide trying to find any information that I could, and I Googled his name. There are more results for a dentist with the same name as this player than they are for Samuel Jung, the hockey player. And I'm sure he's a great guy and everything, the dentist, but we're trying to find some information on, the newest member of the New York Ranger family here. So, that's what we've got. As far as his stats go, we can get into those a little bit. He played this past season in Finland for Carpet U20 and 44 games, 22 goals, 10 assists, 32 points, and a +4. The season before that, he was on the U18 team, and he had 38 games, 13 goals, 10 assists, 23 points, also 7 playoff games, 2 goals, and 4 assists in that season. So that's at least a decent amount of scoring. I feel like once you get into the 6th round, you're typically not going to find somebody with this kind of offensive prowess. And it's not like those are like eye-popping numbers or anything like that, but we're talking about the 6th round here, and there is somebody that has produced offensively. In particular, I would say this most recent season, playing in the U20 league and ending up with 32 points in 44 games. That's not too shabby, I would say, for a 6th rounder. I did find a couple of scouting reports. Like I said, they are not easy to find once you get this late in the draft. But this one comes to us from McKean's Hockey. A favorite of our Finnish regional scout, Jeremy Rivet, Jung is a big Czech winger playing out of Finland. He's in his 2nd year of eligibility, but he is improving rapidly. Jung finished 7th in the U20 league in goal scoring and is able to play a north-south game efficiently because of his strong skating ability for his frame. The compete level is solid. That's the 2nd time we've heard that. It sounds like he does have a good compete level. The compete level is solid, and he plays to his size with surprisingly soft hands. As he fills out, could he be a late bloomer? And then this one comes to us from the Rinkside review. It's not too in-depth, but again, it's better than nothing. Again, Rinkside review here. A rangy 6'3" forward, Jung spent the last 3 seasons in the Finnish junior system. This past campaign, he impressively produced 32 points in 44 games in the U20 league, including a hat trick in January. Jung has represented the Czech national team at U16, U17, and U19 level. And so that's pretty much it. I mean, the only thing I'll say about this here beyond that is that you do need to hit on a couple of these late round picks. If you really want to be a successful hockey team, then it's nice to be able to have some of these dart throws pay off every once in a while. I mean, sometimes maybe it happens as the result of luck rather than anything else. I think the most obvious example of that is Henrik Lundqvist in the 7th round. There's certainly some luck involved there for anybody that drafts him at that point because everybody's already passed on him at least 6 times, and then he ends up becoming, a franchise icon. I don't know if that's going to happen with Jung. Never say never. You never know for sure. It doesn't seem like he has any kind of crazy upside or anything like that. But again, I mean, he deserves his chance just like everybody else does. We'll see how it goes with him, and we'll keep our eye on him and his development just like we do every other Ranger prospect. I figure we can close out today's episode by talking about 2 recent retirements. 2 former New York Rangers have recently decided to hang up the skates. And it's interesting because both of them spent only 1 season with the Rangers. And in the case of each player, it was the final season of their NHL career. We had Blake Wheeler announcing his retirement at the age of 38. He spent 16 seasons in the NHL, the last of which was with the Rangers in 2023, 2024. He sat out this past season, 1,172 games, 321 goals, 622 assists, 943 points with the Bruins, Thrashers, the Jets, and the Rangers. He had a really rough injury with the Rangers that season. And it's really unfortunate because, look, clearly this was not prime Blake Wheeler. I think anybody that watched him play, anybody that watched him skate could probably figure that out right away. But be that as it may, he was starting to find it a little bit, was starting to build a little bit of chemistry with Mika and with Kreider, and starting to chip in offensively at least a little bit more often after a very, very slow start to the season. And then he had a pretty devastating injury where his skate kind of got caught in the ice and he just fell backward and it wasn't good. He did make it back for 1 playoff game. It was game 4 against the Panthers that year. And honestly, the thing I remember most about Wheeler, it's not even anything he did like on the ice. He was actually just off of the ice, because if you guys remember, the Raiders started the playoffs that year 7-0. And in game 3 against the Canes, it was the 7th of those 7 wins. They win in overtime. And it was Panarin that scored the game winner. And the Rangers, they're all celebrating and everybody's mobbing each other and they're all, along the boards there in the corner. And that's also right where the tunnel was. And Blake Wheeler's there like in a suit and tie and he's like banging on the glass and like celebrating with them. It was really a cool moment. And it seemed like, he was a pretty well-liked member of that Ranger locker room while he was there. And obviously, he was slowing down quite a bit. And then he's got that, that devastating injury and the season ends and the Rangers get close to the final, but they obviously don't make it. And obviously out of hockey this past season was Blake Wheeler, which is unfortunate, but he had a great career and all the best to him in retirement. And then the other former Ranger that retired was Yaroslav Halak. Like Wheeler, he too was with the Rangers only for one season, and it was what turned out to be the final season of his career. Halak is honestly probably a better goalie than he gets credit for his career. 581 games with the Canadiens, Blues, Caps, Islanders, Bruins, Canucks, and the Rangers. 295 wins, 189 losses. 69 ties / overtime losses / shootout losses. They kind of just lump those all in there together. 250 goals against average, 915 save percentage, and 53 shutouts. And with the Rangers, got off to a rough start, but stuck with it. I don't think the Rangers won in any of his first 6 games or something like that. And people were panicking and whatnot. But he ended up going 10-9-5 with a 272 goals against average, a 903 save percentage, and 1 shutout. And as it turns out, the winningest Slovakian goalie in NHL history. So again, Yaroslav Halak, Blake Wheeler, they weren't here for long, but overall, Halak played his role. And like I said, Wheeler was starting to pick it up a little bit, at least a little bit. And then he had that injury. And other than that one playoff game, never really got back out there. So that's unfortunate. But all the best to the two of them in their retirement. And I figure we can call it there for today. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, that is @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.